Rawson, welcome back to the podcast, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate. Good to be back.
50th episode, bit of a milestone for the podcast. You obviously got us off to a flying start in episode 1. Mate, can you believe that was over 2 years ago?
Is that over 2 years? Yeah. I was thinking about it the other day, trying to work out the timeline of it all. I think we hadn't opened Bondi Road, Verdus. I think we were talking about that in the pod. So yeah, you've come a long way. I think I've come a long way as well. So let's go again.
Mate, what do you remember about that night we recorded?
It was all a bit of a blur. So that was my first time doing any sort of podcast, sharing my story. I've done a few little snippets on socials, and I think we spoke about that. But yeah, that was the first time just getting all that, and I think it just blurted it all out. I think we sped through it pretty quick, and I've done a few since and tried to refine it a little bit. But it was raw, but it was good. It was good to get the story out there, and it was a good response. So yeah, mate.
Yeah, I've never told anyone this, but I couldn't watch like the draft of that first episode like for months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I couldn't watch it. Like I think we had it recorded in July or August 2023.
Yeah. And
it took me to probably October to actually watch it. So my editor at the time like edited the episode, put it in the Google Drive folder. I was like, mate, it's in there for your review, and it just took me such a long time to.
That's well, you hear about this with sports stars not watching grand finals, or actors not watching movies. So yeah, it makes sense, mate. It's you're putting yourself out there. The first one.
I think we're both putting ourselves
out
there. I think I wanted to do a good job for you, mate, because you're a mate. I was like, I really want to fucking.
No, you did a great job,
mate. Nail this.
No.
You've touched on it there briefly. In terms of sharing your story more broadly, like what has changed for you over that 2-year period?
Yeah, so your story, the platform that you provided me with has opened up a lot more opportunities to share my story, which has been amazing, and the response has been incredible. And to be honest, it's brought me closer with my mum, who is so proud of me for sharing. It's our story. It's not just mine. And a lot of people are a bit more understanding of what I've been through, and also it's opened up a lot more doors, and to share my story and work out different avenues in terms of what I want to get out of it. Instead of just sharing my story, what path I want to go down. Whether what I really want to focus on is through the lens of a domestic violence survivor, through the child. You don't really hear from the children of domestic violence as much, so that's something that's allowed me more opportunities to do. I think I've got a little bit better at speaking, sharing my story, and that's followed through into my work. Obviously, I do speak every day in the gym, but yeah, so the flow and effect has been really good. So I can't thank you enough for that, mate, giving me that platform.
Mate, that's what we're here for. What opportunities are sort of coming your way?
So a lot more speaking opportunities. I was lucky enough. I'm a massive sports fan. I was lucky enough to speak in front of the whole GWS Giants team. So seniors and reserves, which was a big moment for me, and share my story, and hopefully they got something out of that. And judging off the messages I received, they did. And we started to do a lot more speaking events at the gym with Hamish, who's also been on the pod. We did an Are You OK Day event, and getting up and talking in front of people is obviously the next step from speaking on camera. Very daunting, very scary. And then a couple of articles that have come out. So the ABC did an article which has just opened up more eyes on domestic violence and the justice system, I guess. I speak about that a lot. I feel the justice system kind of let my family down a little bit, and hopefully, more eyes on that, and the more change we can have, the better in terms of that.
Just a quick word from me, guys, and please don't skip over this. Do you want a free coffee from me? We're making some really good progress on Spotify and YouTube. I've set myself a goal of having 1,000 followers on Spotify and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of 2025. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to pause this episode right now, jump into your Spotify app, click that follow button, then jump into your YouTube app, click that subscribe button. It really, really helps with the show, and it would mean an awful lot to me. And as a thank you to everyone that does that, here's what I'm proposing. If you see me out and about in person, and you can show me on your phone that you are subscribed to the podcast on YouTube and following it on Spotify, I'll buy you a coffee. Can't say fairer than that. But here's the thing, you've got to be subscribed on YouTube and following it on Spotify to qualify for that free coffee. How does that sound? Cheers. Looking back on that first episode, like I was pretty raw as a host, didn't really know what I was doing. And when I watched that episode back, like I still have so many questions about your story.
Sure.
I feel like we just sort of talked about that incident that happened when you were 13, and then the next minute we just skipped straight ahead to you joining the Navy
Yep.
at 18 and then opening the gym in Bondi. But I really want to know, and I suppose what we're going to focus on tonight is how that incident in your childhood and your childhood more broadly, how that sort of impacted you in your adult life.
Sure.
And yeah, so thanks for coming back on for a bit of a follow-up episode. To help set the scene, and for those who maybe haven't listened to your story in episode 1, can you tell us about that day that you saw your dad shoot your mum in front of you?
Yeah, sure. That's definitely a memory that I won't get out of my head. We lived with prolonged violence. My dad was a violent man. He had some head injuries and really emotions, struggling with controlling his anger, and he took that out on us. And I won't go too in depth with that, but there was one specific event that changed, the course of my life and my family's life, where we'd moved. Mum, myself, and my sister had moved into Launceston, town in Tasmania, from a farm where we grew up, and for a fresh start, to get away from the violence. And I was just settling into high school. I was 12, 13 at the time, just turned 13, and going into year 9. I was in the shower at the time, and my mum was with a new partner, just a couple of weeks, a fresh relationship. So she'd moved on from dad, and dad was aware of that. We'd been trying to leave for a long time, and finally got the courage to do that. And dad came in a rage after spotting mum with the new guy, and unleashed a lot of chaos. He came in, and as he came in, he chased the man out the back. My sister tried to chase my father out, and he actually turned and fired at her, missing her by millimeters. So, that's attempted murder in its own right. And came in the bathroom where my mum was hiding, and I was in the shower at the time. So he proceeded to hit my mum over the head with a pistol, and then fire a bullet. I spoke about this in the previous podcast of he shot her twice. After doing a lot more, recollection of the events, it was one, but with 2 exit wounds. So it went through the shoulder and then in, or 2 entry, not exit, sorry, 2 entry. So in the shoulder, out the shoulder, and then lodged in the lung. So mum was lucky to survive, but she was unconscious. And from there, dad went on the run. So he smashed up the telephone. Very vindictive man. Went on the run, and there was a week there where we were living in that fear of not knowing where dad was. Definitely changed the trajectory of my life. I don't remember too much after this. I was found under my bed by my sister, and gone into shock. And I know we'll speak about the lasting effects of that trauma later on in the podcast. But so tough to deal with. Then dad eventually turned himself in. After a week or so on the run, we owned a lot of property up at near Ben Lomond, which is this kind of mountain range just outside of Launceston. So dense bush, and eventually turned himself in, and then we went into the court. The court, I guess, proceedings where he actually pleaded not guilty. So we had to testify against my father, which was something I struggled with, and I think that's honestly, seeing what happened was traumatic, but testifying against my father was also up there as one of the most traumatic things I've had to do.
This is obviously a very violent incident in itself, Rawson, but it was against the backdrop of a more violent and chaotic upbringing, even before you were 13. What do you sort of remember about?
Just constant chaos and fear, I guess. Just growing up, not knowing what mood dad was in. That mood could violently swing one way or the other. So on his day, he was a great man. He was a teacher in terms of he'd teach me how to work on cars. He'd teach me how to do a lot of things. He was very good with his hands, and we owned a sandstone quarry, and he was was actually an invalid. He didn't have much use of his right side, which was his dominant side, and he taught himself how to, be a very skilled tradesman on his non-dominant side, a very strong-willed person, but that could switch at any moment. So not being able to control his anger. So just living in constant fear of not knowing who he was going to be, and walking on eggshells was tough to deal with.
So what did a bad day look like for you, your mum and your sister?
Chaos. I saw mum thrown through walls. It was anything to get his hands on, belts. He would use on me and my sister. Mum was hit constantly, and she tried to leave on so many occasions, and was threatened with what would happen when she did leave. I've talked about this in previous podcasts about Dad driving really slow behind her up the street, really threatening way, and telling her, where he would bury her, and those types of things.
Where he would bury her.
Yeah, and just horrible things like that. And this has actually allowed me to talk to Mum about this kind of stuff. And I've learnt from our first podcast, I've learned a lot more about what led up to these events.
So what have you learned?
In terms of what he put Mum through.
So your mum's opened up since we had that first podcast.
Yeah.
It's actually given your mum an opportunity to sort of open up as well.
Closer in terms of really getting to understand my childhood, and that's something I've battled with. My trauma is a lot of my childhood is blanked out because I've done what I can to protect myself, and gone into that bit of a shutdown mode. So speaking about this has allowed me to find out more about what we went through, and especially what Mum went through, which no person should have to go through.
Well, let's project forward a bit then, mate. It was only actually after we recorded that I actually heard you talk about C-PTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I'd heard of PTSD before. Yeah. I'd not heard of C-PTSD. So in your own words, mate, from your own experience, what is C-PTSD?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to explain this the best I can. I'm obviously not a professional in the mental health space, but I can speak on my own past experiences and my own experiences. The C stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So PTSD usually is the result of one traumatic experience, and it is horrific. But usually you'll get flashbacks and triggers if something does remind you of that incident, and it's horrible to live with. Whereas complex post-traumatic stress disorder is a little bit different. It's the result of prolonged trauma over a number of years, usually, especially in a younger person. And what happens is you have trouble regulating your emotions. You're hypervigilant. Everything gets a little bit overwhelming because your body and your mind is doing what it can to protect yourself and make yourself feel safe. So I think that's the best way I can put it. That constant sense of just being on edge, and really struggling with regulating those emotions. That's something I've really, really struggled with over the last 25, 30 years. So
it was really the driver for having C-PTSD, Rawson, is growing up in that environment over a prolonged period of time, rather than that one incident.
Yeah, it's not just that one isolated incident. So it's that exposure to a prolonged, trauma. So that violence and that living in fear for so many years, that adds up. And it wasn't until later on in life when I got that diagnosis that it really made sense. I'd heard of PTSD, and I don't get flashbacks. I don't get nightmares as much, but it's just that constant feeling of being overwhelmed. And when I read and was told about C-PTSD, and it was really comforting to know what I was going through was actually something that a lot of other people go through.
How common is it?
There's a lot of people that go through a lot of trauma for a long period of time. So I haven't done the research on this, but as a result of these podcasts, is people opening up to me online, which has been brilliant, reaching out to me on my Instagram, or reaching out to me and saying, I go through this as well. Thank you for giving us a voice. Because like you said, you don't really hear about it too much, but it is quite common.
Probably one of these things that goes like undiagnosed,
of course,
for a long period of time. Yeah. People live with it without knowing it's actually specifically a thing, right?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of common characteristics for other, I'm not going to say illnesses, and other disorders, ADHD, you know, bipolar disease. There's a lot of similarities there. So, it's a tough one.
Mm. When were you diagnosed?
So later on in life, when I was in my early 30s, I really got a handle on C-PTSD. I had been told I had PTSD. I was court ordered to see a psychiatrist when my dad went to jail. Only went once or twice, but that's when the label of PTSD was given to me. And then going through the Navy or in the military, I was exposed to a lot of that. Not myself personally, but understanding what PTSD was. It wasn't until I left the Navy and started to dip a little bit. I lost my purpose when I left the Navy and really wanted to understand why I was feeling a certain way, and started seeking therapy again, that I got diagnosed with C-PTSD, so complex. And that's when I started understanding what it was.
Well, let's talk about your 20s then, Rawson, like pre-diagnosis. How did it impact you through your 20s?
20s were a tough one. I feel as though when I was in the Navy, everything was okay. I was busy. I was constantly at sea. I didn't really have a chance to be in my own head, I guess, if that makes sense. I was working in the engine room. I was doing shift work, 4 hours on. In my 8 hours off, it was drills. It was putting out fake fires. It was putting out fake floods. It was playing a lot of sport, going overseas and having fun. And I feel like that was a great time in my life. And I was also hanging around a lot of mates and drinking a lot, which is never good. And we'll touch on that later, the detrimental effects of that on PTSD and C-PTSD. But yeah, it was a great time there. But it was when I left the Navy, and I was 27 at the time when I left, 26, 27. And I really struggled with losing that sense of identity. You stand for something when you're in the military. You've got a lot of pride. I felt like I was, making my family proud. I was, doing something that had purpose and meaning. And then I left the Navy, and I always wanted to get into PT. And Hamo and I have always wanted to open our own gym. And I touched on that in the last podcast. And, we used to sit at school and design the gyms we'd open, but I still had to do my training and my courses. And I just left the Navy, and I wanted to chill. I wanted to have some fun. So I took about 12 to 18 months off, and then got some work as a fitter while I was studying my PT certs. But that time I was very, very lost. And that's when these feelings started to resurface.
So what feelings specifically?
Anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, hypervigilance, timing. Timing's a big one for me. And I thought for a long time that it was just because it was so ingrained in me in the Navy. And I'm talking about being on time. If I'm 2 minutes late, my mind goes into overdrive. I feel so overwhelmed. And it's just, I know now that's that fear of not being in control. And, I need to have routine and structure and be in control. And when I don't have that, my mind slips, and, I can be quite, destructive to my own mental health, I guess. I was drinking far too much. I was partying, going out 4 or 5 nights a week, and then just not even leaving the house, just riddled with anxiety and depression. And it wasn't really until I found my purpose in health and fitness that things started to change a little bit. I started to get into routine. I started to get that structure. And then I started, looking inward a little bit more and trying to find, answers to why I was feeling the way I was feeling.
Looking back, the drinking and the partying, was that coping mechanism?
Yeah, for sure. But the worst thing was, I'd do that to forget about how I was feeling. But when I would drink, it would all come out, and I'd find myself telling my story and trying to get a little bit of, validation, I guess, from friends. It's okay to be feeling that way because of what you went through, and it'd all come out. And in the end, I was just sick of, getting drunk and getting emotional and sharing my story. And now I'm doing it in a more positive light.
How was that received from your friends at the time?
Yeah, it was great. It always received well. I've got some brilliant people around me, and I have my whole life. I've been very, very lucky. But there's only so much that people can put up with that negative spin on
a
things.
Night out. Yeah,
of course. You're out to have fun, but it'd always be back, back home, and I'd be in tears, or I'd find myself just really feeling down and sorry for myself, and That's not a good place to be.
So you're probably trapped in that cycle, Ross. And you said you were going out like 5 times a week. So you're probably trapped in that cycle of going out and drinking, getting emotional about your story, hungover the next day. And that's when like the anxiety would probably kick in. And then the only way to get rid of the anxiety is another night out with your friend. And then
it's just that vicious cycle. Wow. And it happened a lot. So, it wasn't until, I really got my life in order and structure and routine. And I realized how important that was for me. And then I started really digging deep into my therapy.
So was it only the drinking and maybe the hangover the next day that would sort of trigger these thoughts and feelings coming up, or was there anything?
Always that sense of overwhelm, that overwhelming feeling.
Was that just?
And I still have that to this day, but I just know how to manage it a little bit better. But yeah, constant. Not having a purpose. Feeling like I was lost. Feeling like I was losing control of who I wanted to be and where I was at. Definitely my later part of my 20s was riddled with this.
Bondi Podcast listeners, this episode is sponsored by Chief Nutrition. Chief Nutrition specialise in healthy, nutritious snacks that cut the crap. My personal favourite is the collagen protein bar, which I have every day. And good news, Bondi Podcast listeners get 10% off all Chief Nutrition products when they order online. And we've got a discount code for you right there in the show notes. So go and use that, go and check out the website and let me know what you think. Cheers. I've been looking into it myself and some of the other things that sort of pop up apparently with C-PTSD.
Yep.
Intense anger, shame and guilt.
I had shame about what we went through. I had shame and guilt that I wasn't able to put a stop to it, which is ridiculous considering I was an adolescent, I was a child. But then also the shame of, a night out. What are you doing on a night out? What did you say the next day? What did you say to someone? And it's, that vicious cycle of that. And anger, yes, like not being able to regulate your emotions. And that scared the hell out of me.
So what did that look like?
Snapping at people.
Friends,
family for sure, mum.
Can you give an example? Do you remember a specific
Not a specific example. Even getting in a few little fist fights when I was in my 20s as well, which was unwarranted, and I know that I'd start them. It was just silly things. Nothing comes to mind specifically, but just that not being able to regulate my emotions as much as I'd like. Yeah.
What about negative self-belief and internal criticism?
Yeah, I'm still that's still pretty prevalent. I'm my own harshest critic. But yeah, definitely in that stage of my life when I didn't have much to be proud of. I'd left the Navy. I was kind of floating. Debts were racking up a little bit because I wasn't earning money. You do become quite you criticize yourself a lot.
Do you remember any of that internal monologue from your 20s, from that specific point in time?
I remember just really not liking who I was towards my later part of my 20s, for sure. I don't remember any specific moments, but just that constant feeling of,
I'm a piece of shit sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure, mate.
Yeah, I've been there, mate.
For sure, yeah. And then when you're in that cycle of going out and drinking and feeling hungover and feeling shit, and
you're proving to yourself that you're a piece of shit.
yeah, exactly. It's just a vicious cycle. I was still trying to train, and I was getting nowhere with my training, and it's just not conducive to who I wanted to be at all.
Yeah. So let's talk about getting out of that cycle. Then, Rawson, so how did you talked about purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you get out of that?
So getting my PT certs was a really good start. I was still drinking a lot then, but it gave me structure and routine. So I wasn't working for a little bit. I was working, and then I worked as a fitter because I was a diesel fitter by trade from the Navy. Didn't enjoy it. And then finally got qualified with my PT certs, and Hamish and myself started working, and we were doing boot camps, and those boot camps seemed to grow pretty quickly, and we seemed to be quite successful and good at what we did. And my clients started coming in and growing, and it gave me something to be proud of. And the drinking went from 4 days a week to just the weekends. And then just feeling better about myself, having structured routine, my training got better. I really took football a lot more serious than I had, so that gave me an outlet as well, somewhere to take my anger out as well. And so, yeah, routine, structure really started to come in when I hit my 30s, which isn't that long ago. I'm only 38. I'm 38 now, getting old. But yeah, it's only really been this last decade of my life where I've started to try and grow and get better. And I have a lot of setbacks, but at least I'm trying to grow.
So talk to me about the build up to that diagnosis.
Yep.
Then, like, what was the trigger for going to get that looked at again? Because you obviously got this diagnosis of PTSD shortly after that incident when you were 13.
Yep.
Like, what sort of triggered you to sort of go inward and actually look at this a bit more again?
Obviously, when I started doing my PT work and trying to be a better businessman, owning my own business, I had my own PT business, and trying to get structure and routine, and then just trying to get all my ducks in a row. I guess I started to do a bit of talk therapy. So seeing a psych, I jumped to a couple. I didn't resonate with one, but I was quite committed at that stage to doing it, and that's when I got that diagnosis and started looking into things a lot more, looking into symptoms and what to do and what not to do, I guess. And that kick-started. I then stopped that for a little bit, and then a relationship breakdown forced me to look into doing it again. And that's when I found a different type of therapy, which is kinesiology, it's helped me immensely. I feel like in the last 3 to 4 years I've been doing that. I've definitely elevated to who I am now, and it's been so great for me.
It's been a big part of my journey as well, mate.
Okay.
Kinesiology, and I don't come across an awful lot of other people that have actually gone through it.
Yep.
It really helped me a few years ago when I was sort of going through a few things, and I was sort of looking internally at some behaviours that I wasn't too happy with or proud of, and I found a kinesiologist who was based up in Byron Bay. Started working with her sort of on a weekly basis, and changed my life.
It's a game changer, mate.
But for those who maybe again don't know what kinesiology is, like, what, in your own words, what is it, Rawson?
So a bit hard to describe. I've tried to describe this to a few people.
Hence why I just fumbled over my words a bit there.
I'll do my best. I do specifically NET. I'm not sure if you've heard of NET, neuro emotional technique. I see a brilliant man. His name's Evan. I used to see him weekly when I first started, sometimes twice a week. That's now gone to fortnightly. I see him fortnightly, but I just got back from Europe. I went on a holiday. Got back about a month ago, and I've seen him every week since I've been back. So when I need to see him, I'll go see him. But usually it's that fortnightly appointment with him. But kinesiology or NET, it's about, when you go through traumatic experiences, I'm going to do my best to explain this, your body, and not just your mind, but your body holds on to that stress as well. And it's about clearing that negative energy. I leave those sessions feeling so light, like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders. Your body doesn't lie. So when we bring up past experiences, it's really funny. The number 12, so my age of 12 and my age of 16 always come up. All right, and that's those times when my body would have been holding on to traumatic or holding on to stress from traumatic experiences. So 12, my dad, that incident happened. My dad went to jail. And then 16, my dad got out of jail. So 2 big times in my life that my body, when we're talking about, how I'm feeling in the present day, my body will revert back to, and it will show signs that I'm holding on to trauma from that time in my life. And it's about clearing that and being okay in the present moment.
So what does a session with Evan actually look like when you go to see him? Like, what happens?
So we'll talk. We'll sit down and have a chat. And he's a brilliant man. He's so easy to talk to. And I've never met anyone that I can talk so freely and open with without fear of being judged. And he's great. And I'll bring up whatever's on my mind, what I'm going through at the moment, whether it be something to do with work or friends or relationships, whatever it may be. And then we work out the root cause of the time in my life when I first started feeling this way. And majority of the time, it usually goes back to 12 or 16. And then we clear that and it's
How do you clear it?
So I'm okay with a sentence we use is, I say, I'm okay with, let's say, eating vegetables, all right? And your body will tell you if you're not. So we hold my arm out, and he pushes down on that, and I'm okay, and it'll drop because your body's not doesn't
resist it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we work out why I'm not okay with vegetables, and we talk about what time in my life, and then he'll work through, was it 0 to 10, and my arm stays firm, 10 to 20. All right, what happened at 10 to 20? All right, and we work back on it, and it's crazy how much it triggers memories. Right, my memories come flooding back, and it's so hard to describe unless you've been in that room. But it's been an absolute game changer for me, and just clearing that, and by the end of the session, I'm okay with vegetables. My arm is strong, and it doesn't drop. So my body's telling me that I'm okay, and that correlation to mind and body.
So what's been like the biggest breakthrough you've had in any of these sessions with Evan? Does anything stand out?
Good question. Put me on the spot there. We've been through so much, whether it be relationship breakdowns and being okay with the outcome, that I'm not the voices inside my head. Calmness, I feel a lot more calm after speaking to him. So regulating my emotions. It's hard to put it down to one specific thing, but he's just helped me incrementally so much over the last 4 years that, I feel like I'm okay with what's happened to me, and I'm okay with responding and the triggers that arise, being okay with how I deal with them. So nothing specifically. I could sit here and talk for hours about Ev, but I won't do that.
Yeah, look, I want to delve in a little bit there, Rawson. You mentioned I'm not the voices inside my head. And I want to actually try and understand these voices a little bit more, and like what actually you are dealing with on a daily basis when things flare up and that internal monologue starts turning a little bit negative. Negative self-belief, internal criticism, 2 symptoms of C-PTSD. You've said that you still do get that.
Yeah.
Like let's use opening the gym, opening Virtus as an example. Was there any sort of internal criticism or negative self-belief or belief or thoughts going through your head when you were about to do this big scary thing that you don't know
definitely
how it's going to turn out?
100%. It's something I think a lot of people go through, not just people with C-PTSD or PTSD. I spoke about it in the last podcast with you, that imposter syndrome of not feeling like I was ready, not feeling like I was a good enough coach, not feeling like I was a good enough business partner. And I still get those thoughts a lot. My
understanding is that everyone gets those thoughts, but it's potentially amplified for someone like yourself.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I go, when I say the voices inside my head, they are quite prevalent throughout the day. Everything I do, I critique, whether it be a training session, whether it be coaching, whether it be anything. I'm constantly working out, what I did wrong, how I could do this better. When I am, like even this podcast today, it was on my mind all day. What's the worst thing that could happen, and scale back from that. So I overanalyze. I critique myself. Even just a gym session where I'm training, like how I could have done that better. So it's tough. It's tough to deal with. I think that stems a lot from putting so much pressure on myself when I was a kid. So I used to do that to save myself getting hurt physically or emotionally from dad. Really trying to be the best version of myself I could be, so I didn't leave myself open to getting hurt, if that makes sense. And that's carried on throughout my whole life.
I've heard you talk in another podcast about you and your dad's relationship over footy.
Yeah, football was
and how it was quite like it was quite a bipolar relationship, right? It was quite, if you played well,
I'd be rewarded.
You'd be rewarded. If you didn't play well, then it would go the other way, right?
Yeah. And in quite extreme ways too. So, I would be treated to, whether it be a treat, chocolate, can of Coke, whatever it may be, Macca's on the way home if I played well, or just complete silence and taking me straight to the oval to work on parts of my game where I may have let him down and let the family image down by not playing well. I remember specific moments of getting my boots taken off me because I didn't deserve them, or going straight to the oval afterwards and practicing my kicking because I missed a goal. This was under 11s, under 12s. Like, if I have the chance to have kids, and I'd love to, you want to encourage your kids. You want to see them blossom and make their own path instead of criticizing them. But it's left a lasting effect on me for sure.
But do you think that's probably where that inner critic comes from? Because you're probably talking to yourself
definitely
at that age. If you've missed a goal,
and that went into schoolwork as well. So I always wanted to do well at school, and then when Dad went to jail, I stopped all that. My grades went down, and I started being a lot more social because I didn't have that on my back of trying to do well and having to please him. But it's carried on over into my adult life for sure.
So let's go back to that example, Rawson, of you opening Virtus and all that negative self-talk that was happening and all that doubt that was happening at the time. How did you actually overcome it?
Reps and sets. I think just spending every day in there, and I probably spent, especially in the first few years, every minute of the day at Virtus or working on Virtus. So I actually see that as a benefit, I guess. And you always look for the silver lining in things. Yes, I'm critical and I'm an overthinker, but I think that can also mean
you're well prepared.
I'm well prepared, and I will do anything I can to succeed because I want to silence those voices inside my head. I want to silence that critique. So I put everything I possibly could, as well as my business partners did at Virtus, and I think we succeeded quite quickly, not as a result of just me, of the whole team, but I was very, very goal orientated. But yeah, it's tough to deal with that inner criticism, but I think that's a way I counter it by doing everything I can to make the most of every opportunity I get.
Has that voice got quieter over the years?
For sure, definitely. And that's through, one, sharing my story, getting it out there and not internalizing everything. My kinesiology, being okay with those thoughts inside my head. They don't define me. And yeah, reps and sets. Journaling has helped me immensely. So when I have these negative thoughts, I write them down on a bit of paper, and then sometimes I look at it on paper and you see it and you're like, what are you thinking, mate? This is from here to here, it looks completely different. But yeah, journaling for me was a game changer. I used to get the books with prompts, and then now I can write, and that's helped me so much. So
once you've taken that negative chatter from inside your head and you've put it on the page, what do you do with it?
I've got them all at home. I don't go back and read them, so they're at home. But
do you just leave it? Do you leave all the negativity on the page, or do you finish off with a positive? Or
no, I just whatever's on my mind, positive or negative, I put it out there. It would be a good experiment or a good thing to go back and have a look and see how far I've come. But yeah, it's just on the page, and then when that's done, I turn the page.
Are you a small business or solo entrepreneur who wishes you had more hours in the day? Have you ever thought about hiring a virtual assistant? Well, the Bondi Podcast is sponsored by Remote-E. Remote-E specialise in connecting small businesses and entrepreneurs with the best virtual assistant talent in the Philippines to do all those jobs that you don't want to, so you can focus on growing and scaling your business. If this is something you're interested in, the Bondi Podcast can get you 2 weeks absolutely free with Remote-E. Just go to the website, remote-e.com.au/contact and enter the referral code Bondi for 2 weeks absolutely free. That's 2 weeks absolutely free. Cheers. So mate, I want to talk about relationships. As I've been looking into complex post-traumatic stress disorder, I see that some of the symptoms are difficulty trusting others and maintaining relationships. How's that played out for you?
Yeah, it's in one sense of the relationships I have the same group of friends that I've had since kindergarten, where we're so close and we can share anything. My group of mates, I still have so many close mates from the Navy. I have, guys I played footy with, a lot of close friends. But on the other side of that, the flip side, I definitely struggled, giving all of myself in relationships because of those things you just mentioned.
Friendships or romantic relationships?
Romantic relationships more. Self-sabotaging in terms of, I had a big problem with abandonment. My dad went to jail when I was 12 and got out of jail, had a couple of years trying to mend that relationship, and then he passed away. So that was something that, I reverted back to, of trying to self-sabotage a relationship before they could leave me. But I'm in a really good place at the moment. And I used to, not communicate for, fear of judgment, and things that went along with that. But through time and through looking inward, I feel like I'm in a brilliant place now, and my relationships are really sound.
So, Rawson, I just want to pick up on one of the points that you said there. So you would deliberately self-sabotage a relationship just to make sure that you didn't give the other person the opportunity to end the relationship and abandon you first. In that scenario, was there actually any evidence that the person was going to leave you, or was it just all internal chatter?
I think the majority of the time it would have been internal chatter for sure. Obviously, like any relationship, there's conflict, and there's disagreements. But living with, a condition where everything seems like a personal attack, that would have been blown out of proportion for sure. I can see that now looking back. But in the time when you're in the heat of the moment, and you haven't done the work to look inward and realize what these emotions mean, and what's going through my head isn't always right, because I'm in this overwhelmed state, then so it's not conducive to a good relationship, I guess, because definitely putting my needs above the other person's because of how I was feeling it, and that's really something I'm trying to not to do at the moment, and something I'm very comfortable in and I'm not doing.
Would that self-sabotage spread into any other areas of your life outside of romantic relationships?
Yeah, I guess so, for sure. I'm lucky that I've got really close friends that hold me accountable, Hamish being one of them. So they would see through that and call me out on it. And Hamish is a big catalyst for my change as well, so calling me out on behaviour. And so, yeah, very lucky in that sense that my mates wouldn't put up with it, so they hold me to account.
Nice, mate. Look, let's talk about how you manage it more today. You said that kinesiology has been a big help. You said that the internal negative chatter has got quieter over the years. And what else helps you sort of manage this on a day-to-day basis? You said journaling.
Journaling's great.
Anything outside of that?
Movement, for sure. So for me, movement, and that for me, that's training. I'm very lucky that I own 2 gyms, so I have access to world-class facilities. But making sure I'm training in the morning, for me, that's my weight training. If I don't train, I feel heavy, I feel lethargic, and my thoughts do I start to overthink a little bit. So moving the body's great. We're so lucky that we live in Bondi. I've got a little spot on the hill, literally just outside your house here.
I mean, I see you going across there in the afternoon.
Every day. And just in my and I journal across there as well. Like the little South Bondi Hill is my little sanctuary. So just staying grounded, I guess, and just getting outside, journaling, like you said, and then just having a passion, a purpose, routine, structure. It's been instrumental for my growth. So that's something I need to do every day. And I don't need to train every single day, but whether it's going for a walk, just moving the body, getting out of the house, and just staying connected and trying to stay as grounded as I can.
How, when you sort of look at where you are today and you compare yourself to that version of Rawson that was sort of you even self-sabotaging yourself, so that version of Rawson that was just out of the Navy. You're doing your PT search, but you're going out 5 nights a week. Like, how do you look at yourself today and sort of compare yourself to that version of you back then? Like, what would be the biggest difference?
Growth, for sure. I look back at those times, and I had some brilliant times, great times. But, you know, I am a completely different person in terms of my outlook on life and what I want to achieve. I'm very goal-driven now, instead of, I feel like I was just floating through life, and that's post-Navy to where before Virtus, that middle part there. Having Virtus has been instrumental to my growth. But yeah, it's worlds apart from where I am now to where I was, and I contribute that to having amazing people in my life that hold me accountable to looking inward and doing the work, and wanting to change as well. I think that's a big thing, that self-awareness of not being stuck and actually wanting to grow, which I've still got a lot of growing to do.
How important do you think Virtus plays a role in all of this, mate, in terms of like keeping you on the straight and narrow, giving you a focus, giving you a purpose?
Virtus is huge. Like you said, it gives me purpose. You know, we have 1,000 members that, you know, are looking for us for guidance. We want to create this safe environment for them to come train and not have to think about, you know, the struggles that they're going through. And, you know, if I'm not holding myself up to a standard, how can I then, you know, impart that on others? So, you know, it keeps me in check. Same with sharing my story. You know, it's in a kind of selfish way, it holds me accountable as well. Yes, it's helping others, and it's definitely helping myself though, helping me live to a standard, and the standard I want to be.
I'm a firm believer in your why needs to be bigger than you. So the thing that sort of keeps you on the straight and narrow, keeps you adopting all of those good habits. And if you really want to get somewhere in life, like that why, for me, it's this podcast, for you, it's Virtus.
Yeah.
Like, just having something like that in your life that you can focus on, kind of like your North Star, can just be so powerful.
Yeah. And it gives me, you know, my alarm goes off at 4 a.m. every morning. You know, I'm an early riser. You know, and I love it. I jump out of bed. I really enjoy it. So I think, you know, I'm so lucky to have my career as my passion, you know, just like you're doing with the podcast. You know, it fills me with so much, you know, joy and drive, I guess. And you know, I love going to bed at 9:30 at night.
It's nearly your bedtime, mate.
Yeah, it is. It's getting close. Because I'm so passionate about work, and I love seeing, you know, the crew and, you know, all our members in there. It's a really cool, positive place to work.
Nice, mate. Look, final question for me this evening. What advice would you give others living with C-PTSD, PTSD, or any form of trauma that they're holding on to and reliving?
Sure. It's a tough one, because I'm not a mental health professional, but I've lived it. So all I can say is I give advice of what's helped me. And, you know, it's not linear. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, but that doesn't define who you are. As long as you're, you know, trying to get better. And, you know, I think in terms of that, it's, you know, surrounding yourself with good people. I know that's sometimes hard, but really finding your community is massive. And just asking for help if you need it. Where that doesn't need to be, you know, going to a therapist is brilliant, and it's changed my life. But that could just be a phone call to a mate. You know, let them know what you're going through. Don't try and do it by yourself. You know, like I spoke about before, you're not the voices inside your head. They don't define you. So take it easy on yourself. Be kind to yourself, and take it day by day. It's not always going to be linear.
Beautiful place to leave it, mate. Rawson, thank you for coming in, mate.
Good man. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.